Hi guys, this is Mrs. Hooper, and I'm going to go ahead and show you today how to do the next step after the color wheel. You guys did the watercolor color wheel, and they look fantastic, guys, so good job on those. So I'm going to go ahead and set this aside, and the next thing I'm going to have you guys do is I'd like you to learn how to the importance of adding water to your colors and adding black, and the different effects that you can get with doing that. I have two samples here. You only need to do one. If you did do two color schemes, then the second one I would give you extra credit. I would just go ahead and give you an extra 10 points credit on top of the 45 points. But it would just be the 45 points, guys, for doing just one of them. So, for example, this would be one that is purple and monochromatic, meaning just one color. And so it's just purple, and then adding water, and then adding more and more black. The second sample I have here is orange, and pure orange pigment here, and then adding more and more water as you go across. And on this one, it's the most pigment, pure orange, and then adding more and more black as you go and mixing that in. So I'm just going to show you how to do that briefly, and then we'll be moving on to another color chart. You guys got your watercolor set or your brush set, and it came with a rubber band because when you take it out of the packaging just kind of falls apart. You probably noticed that. So that's why we have the rubber band. And there is a small brush that came with this watercolor set. You can use that as well if you'd like. And then when we start mixing colors, we can mix them in the lid of the lid of the tray, or you can use this foam plate that I gave you. I tried both, and I found that they work the same. The foam plate just gives you a little more mixing room, so that's why I gave you those 3 plates, and they rinse off really nicely. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and start with mixing. And I think the color that I'd like to do is, I am going to just go back to the purple. So what you do, again, you dip your paint in the water, and then you might want to just go ahead and say, whatever color you use. You can use any color, but I'm just going to go ahead and do the purple again. And this is purple plus black. Okay, and then you just dip in the water, you grab your purple, and I'm just gonna, you could probably see that I used a half a sheet. You can do the same thing, so that you have room for the second one in case you decide you want to do a second one. Again, that's optional for extra credit. Okay. But I just want to have plenty of pigment. I'm gonna get the palette here pretty wet. Wet, but then also having more pigment just straight out of here will give me the most pigment if I just do it that way instead of watering it down over here. So I'm going to just apply it straight to the square with the most pigment that I can get. And then if it seems a little thin, then just go back in and get more pigment. I like using the square brush for the square shape of the of my chart. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 squares that are 1 inch by 1 inch, so you just measure that out in both rows. I did purposely have about 1.5 inches to 2 inches at the top so that I could put the title, put the purple plus white, and then have 1 inch in between purple plus black, and then again the 6 squares. Okay, so then I, on my foam tray here, I'm going to bring over plenty of pigment and just keep bringing over a big pile of pigment, whatever color you decide to use. And then that way you can start dipping in the water and just adding a little extra water each time that you go to the right. That might need even just a little more pigment, because I have to take into consideration that I'm going all the way over to the right. And those additional 5 squares need to be lighter and lighter as I go. So do your best. Okay, and then do your best to make sure that, and then you spread it out with more and more water, kind of on the outer edge of that pile. And add just a little more pigment. Okay, and then more water. And then I'm just getting away from the main area again of the pile of paint with the most pigment, and just kind of watering it out on the edge. And then finally I'm going out even further from the main area and just adding more water, and just make it as watered down as you can. Okay, so that is my first row. Let me get my paper towel out of the way. And so the second row is purple plus black. So I'm just going to get some more pigment in here just to kind of refresh that puddle of color. And then again, straight from the here, but it's pretty wet. You know, there's a fair amount of moisture in the palette. So that it flows, but it's also mostly pigment. Okay, so that's my pure purple. Then I'm going to go ahead and start adding black, and I'm just going to gradually, black can really take over a color really easily, and you just have to be careful not to go too black too soon. If anything, you can kind of test it. Like even just one little dip in there with the whole pile change the color enough, and then it's still pigmented, you know, a lot of pigment. I might even add just a little more purple, but being mixed with black, it already changes it and mutes it a little. Okay. Now I'm going to just dab it in there one more time and mix it with all of the purple. And as you can see, I'm using a test strip to kind of just test it this time. Especially with the black, you don't want it to get too dark too soon. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. It's looking different enough from the last one, maybe a tiny bit more. These first 3 squares, 3 or 4 squares, really all of them, you want them to still continue to have a purple color to them. You don't really, even all the way to the right, you don't want it to be completely black. And that's the case, guys, with pretty much all of your, any painting that you might need some black effect to it. You don't want it to be, still want the hint of color in it to make it harmonious with your whole painting. I'm going to test it out here as I'm getting closer to the right side to make sure that I can still see purple in there. And I think I need to go and get some more purple just to make it so that it doesn't go too dark too soon again. But it's definitely darker than the last one. And then just one last one. And it could be really, really close to just black, almost looking like it's black. I'm going to get a little more water, but you'll still see just a hint of purple in there. So do your best to preserve just a little bit more, or just a tiny bit of purple at the end still. Okay, guys, so that is how you do the monochromatic chart with one color. And then again, like I said, if you wanted to do a second one on the second half of the sheet, you could, but it's optional. Okay, so that is the monochromatic chart. All right, and then I'll show you next what to for the next chart. Okay, thanks, guys.